there is a lot of change coming up. So
Yes.
couple of unpacking. First thing, what we notice through our research in AKFI is that uh, sustainability requires a different way of transferring data, much more complex than a procurement agreement, where it's pretty much a contract of delivery, right? So now the strategy of your customer has to be aligned with the sustainability strategy of the supply chain. You brought the example of carbon footprint, for instance, which is a major, is top of
Mhm.
mind in the industry. And carbon footprint, it's primarily generated by your supply chain. So you can claim net zero, but you have control over 10%, 20% of what you produce, what is produced by your manufacturing, by your processes, and so on, as a result of the transfer from the supply chain. So there is this complexity that is just being uncovered as companies start to report and they figure out, major suppliers figure out that they have to issue 5, 10, 20 different reports, answer to questionnaires, hire an army of people. This is not AI to reply. They have to be people understanding the requirements and customizing the data. You raise the other problem of proprietary and secret and data that has to be protected in the process. There is like price information. You don't want
Right.
to tell the costs, for instance, and the prices you deliver to other competitor of your customers, right? So you have this issue with sustainability data. Then you have the added requirement of changing the processes inside the company. And it touches starting with financial. We see double materiality as being central to the European
Correct.
sustainability. That requires, as you mentioned, ambidexterity in in the people in finance. Unexpected. They say, "Oh, we just deal with numbers." No, you deal with sustainability numbers. You deal with double materiality, which, by the way, in European standards, it's equal to first materiality, which means you have to be accurate, auditable, and all this. So there is another aspect of unpacking what you just said. And together, of course, you have to continue your business and grow and thrive in your business as well. So, and we didn't add the innovation, but we leave it for a
It's
different
another
thread.
time. Yes, exactly. You said it so well, Manuel. And I just wanted to reinforce what you said. In the food industry, the majority of the carbon footprint is generated upstream in the field,
Okay.
in the ingredient production. So it's impossible for a company, I mean, the company, a food processor can optimize the way they operate and they optimize the way that they
Hmm.
distribute and they merchandise their products, but they cannot optimize upstream without the partnership of all the suppliers and the farmers and the broader ecosystem
Hmm.
that generates the ingredients or the raw materials, and including packaging, by the way, that they come to their
Hmm.
gates. So this requires a very different degree of of partnership systems and
Hmm.
ultimately ambidexterity. It is not only about cost and quality. It is about cost and quality and sustainability. It is not only about feeling good, it is also about reporting and being responsible and accountable for your reports. So it's actually this revolution is happening quietly. And I said earlier on that we're seeing a patchwork when it comes to ESG this year, but things are moving in the right direction. It's a matter of time, it's a matter of effort, But ultimately, we are moving. It is not a linear evolution, but it is the direction is clear.
Right. The direction is clear, and what we've noticed actually from a regulatory viewpoint, the complexity of the reporting, European Union being the leader in complexity, they started to take steps to simplify.
Yeah.
In the process, they transfer the responsibility, if you want, the requirements for accurate, complete reporting on sustainability to the financial industry, the risk mitigation industry, bonds and insurance, essentially. So companies now, they have a choice. If they want to get better finance, they have to talk about their sustainability plan, their achievements in sustainability, not greenwashing because they're audited. So the finance industry, it's based on audits. So going in that direction, the finance industry becomes actually the enforcement mechanism, if you want, for reporting and the strategy for sustainability. You don't have a sustainability plan for your new plant, for instance, on how you respond to environmental disasters. You will have a problems to get insurance, for instance, or finance.
That's right. And it makes perfect sense that that finance becomes the epicenter of all of this transition.
Absolutely.
Now, it is true that sometimes policy and regulations become very burdensome. And it's also true that, industry would prefer to be, as unburdened as
Hmm.
possible, but this is not the reality. And my wish would be that policymakers and regulators come together with industry. They do, but could they exchange jobs? Could they do sabbaticals where they do each other's jobs
That's a great proposal.
and understand what the reality is on the other side of the fence, um, and make right size regulations and right size the processes and systems that need to be built within a corporation to comply. And actually, compliance is not enough. For these things to be successful, they
Hmm.
need to be embraced. They need to become part of how a company does business and how uh, the culture internalizes sustainability. So if only we could have um, those job exchanges for short periods of time.
That's a great proposal. We'll talk about educational barriers in a second, but I
Okay.
wanted to put one more piece in the puzzle together. And that piece is reflecting on the swing between stricter regulation and more relaxed regulations in Europe. I think they got a really good service to sustainability in long term. And here is why. They moved the sustainability to the front pages, in some way scaring the companies that they have to produce a lot of reporting. Then they relaxed and they said, let the industry, laissez-faire, let the industry act
Mhm.
in economic terms, in a capitalistic model, self-regulated. But if you don't do a good job, we'll regulate you. So I think I see the dynamics actually being positive over a trend, as a trend, as a change of time. Over time, these stricter regulations, these political debates, ESG or not ESG, actually made it to the front pages and actually puts sustainability squarely in the processes and in the strategies of the companies, as you mentioned, not only in the reporting, not only in compliance, not only in finance.
Mhm.
So now companies are pretty much well equipped along the supply chain. And as you mentioned, they require also, and we'll come to a question on educational barriers in the industry, because education is vertical, right? You become a specialist, and more specialist, you go, you get your master's, PhD, maybe a second PhD or postgrad, and you become super specialized. You understand the molecule in detail, and now you need to understand how this fits into the bigger picture, right? In agriculture, where it's produced, maybe in processing, in transportation, in AI. So how do you see these educational barriers in the industry, in the food industry, in the um, and how it touches the traditional education barriers, right?
Yeah, yes. You know, uh, the good news is that in the food industry and throughout my experience, I saw that nothing can move forward successfully or effectively without collaboration.
Okay.
So already the mindset and the practice is already in place. And a lot of people, particularly people from the fields of science and engineering, they have been trained to solve problems. And they love to do so. This is like their pride. This is their work pride. But what we see today as cross-functional collaboration and execution is not has to change. It's not going to be the same as what we need in the future. So, the circularity and the digital transformation, circularity, sustainability, digital transformation, all of this kind of like
Hmm.
constellation priorities, they're horizontal challenges. So the companies they will need to find a new way of integrating the functional teams and the
Okay.
subject matter experts. So finance and R&D and procurement and operations and sustainability and regulatory affairs and legal, they all need to contribute to solving a specific problem. And it's going to be a dynamic evolution. And this evolution is not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen with systematic leadership signals and systematic, persistent change management. These things will be very critical because the message has to come from the top, and there has to be the drumbeat in the whole organization to
Mhm.
actually adopt the new realities. And when it comes to professionals, sort of, we have multiple generations in the workforce. Maybe we have five generations today. And the younger generations, they skew digital natives. The older generations are analog. But for the new people coming into the professions, I think it is very important for them to anchor themselves in a certain discipline. You know, they are scientists, or engineers, economists, or even like they are political scientists. You know, like they're people who come from the arts. But it is very important for them to become problem solvers, to learn from others and contribute to the problems to solve. It is not going to be enough to be isolated in a certain function. So to be effective players, they have to become more cross-functional players and to solve problems. When it comes to people who are in their mid-career or later in their career, I think it is very important. They have the expertise and they have the maturity. It's very important to play the role of integrators and bring the different
Absolutely.
parties together, become coaches, become mentors, become advisors to their supervisors. I think the power of integration is going to be critical in how fast and how effectively companies transition. It's not just a matter of transitioning and be a brutal transition. It has to be the the it has to be as easy as painless as possible, and it has to be compelling. and it has to be embraced by the people who are in the transition, either leading the transition or being led in the transition, and all of the above. So that would be my message: become problem solvers, embrace working within teams, and depending on where you are in your career, be integrators.
So we have sort of a more detailed question about career advice. I think you already gave a lot of good career advice. But as you said, there are five generations. I like how you define the analog versus digital. I would say there is a new generation called AI actually upcoming right now. So uh,
Yes.
the digital is only the beginning of a major industrial revolution. But we deal in AK5 with multiple generations, of course. We have a lot of Gen Zers that are helping
Mhm.
us, that are donating their time and effort to help AKFI succeed. And there are Gen Zers, and when you talk with them or when you see what they write, it's like, what do you mean you don't have sustainability? What's wrong? What's wrong with your company? I'm not going to come to work for you.
Mhm.
A lot of this generation come up with, as you mentioned, with expertise in sustainability as a primary expertise. Now, on the other hand, we have the middle management layer that are transitioning. Some are transitioning because of their beliefs. They're saying, look, I'm starting to think about the next generation. I work with them. I need a transition plan. And then you have the executives on top, which in most businesses are the analog analog generation, right? And they are trying to orchestrate the transition. So when you look at these three elements, let's say, what advice you'll give specifically to each group, the Gen Zers, the middle management, and the senior management? You're working with all the layers, so I'll benefit from your wisdom.
Yes, to the newcomers, to the Gen Zers, I would say, um, hone your skill, hone your field of study, your field of expertise, and make sure that you continue to learn and you continue to evolve. Make sure that you are evolving, and
Mhm.
you are constructive in your bridging your ideas, your expectation about sustainability and the reality of your environment. You have to become a, a force of change, and you have to use your youth and your enthusiasm but to be useful within the team, within the context of your
Right.
working environment. For the middle layer, I would say, as I said earlier on, I would say be integrators, be those who will offer themselves for assignments that they're slightly different, who will define better ways to effect change,
Change.
who will really, it's like putting oil in the cogs. I see the younger generation as the cogs because they have to move, and that middle generation oiling, enabling those cogs to move.
Very nice image.
And when it comes to the leadership, they truly need to embrace ambidexterity because it is not just any one thing. It is not just the here and now, making revenue and profit for the next quarter, for the next year. It is really future proofing the company, future proofing the organization, and at the same time, innovating. What is this
Yes.
radical innovation that is going to address the problems and is going to, continue to um, uh, put the company or the organization in a strong position. It is not just any one thing. So they will need to anticipate the future. They really need to anticipate and backcast, anticipate the future, backcast, and say, how will we continue to be in a position of leadership? And that is perform today and transform for the future. Those two things. And as I said earlier on, not any one thing solves a problem. Technology alone does not scale an innovative solution. You need systemic
Absolutely.
effort. A business model alone, in the absence of buy-in and cultural acceptance, it's not going to be effective. So yeah, it is really, they will have to be truly ambidextrous. They will have to define what that means for the organization and then demonstrate it and walk the talk.
So if they start to think about legacy, the executives will have to think how this legacy will look in the eyes of the new next generation of their, you know, offsprings and kids. And so, and I would add, they have to learn ambidexterity on the go.
Yes,
Uh, You know, they probably started their career with a pocket calculator or a massive IBM system somewhere in the background. Now they are in the career where the information travels on its own ways, and uh, they have to in the same time control it and let it go if they can do, you know, back to the juggler model. They have to control, but they have to also make sure that the all the balls are in the air. Let's say.
yeah,
On the younger generation, of course, they are coming with enthusiasm. But I like your image because for a system to work well, for a companies are systems to work well, all the cogs have to work with each other. You can't have one spinning at one different speed than another and trying to figure it out. So as they reach from university, when we see people in transition, they start to get the first jobs and so on. Um, I know some cases where they explain frustration about the speed of transformation, but I should remind them about a large ship. If you try to turn it too fast, the ship capsizes. You know, that doesn't. So it's a very interesting dynamic we observe, and the two factors, sustainability and AI, they like the oceans, this ship has to sail on.
yes. That's a
And
fantastic analogy. We have invoked a lot of imagery today, but absolutely right. And I've been making some notes here as you were talking, Manuel, and I want to make I want to make three comments. The first comment is, being Greek, I have been influenced by obviously the Greek philosophers, and the thing that is true and will always be true is that what Heraclitus said, that everything flows and nothing stays the same. So every generation will face a challenge and will face opportunities too. But it is all part and parcel of that flow. So depending of the problem of a generation, the generations they will need to come together and solve the problem. There is a lot of strength and pride and opportunity in solving problems. So
so
I would say that organizations need to embrace problem solving. Embrace it. The problem is of our generation is that our natural resources are dwindling. The opportunity is through one of the opportunities, not the only opportunity, but the ability to use data to become smarter and solve the problems faster is an opportunity for us. So, how do we solve problems? and how do we do it really well. And in solving problems, I think it is good sometimes to actually surrender ourselves to the unknown. When you solve
Mm.
problems, you always come up with insights that you had not anticipated. And those insights become fodder, they feed new innovation. So always be on the lookout, always look around the corners to see how your problem solving has unlocked opportunities that we had not seen before, which takes us back into nothing stays the same. The problem is when we want to maintain the status quo, and it's just not possible.
Um, Absolutely no. Everything is dynamic, the environment, the society. So we actually like to see continuity, like we see it, as you mentioned, in time, and but maybe it's not continue. We have discontinuities, we have gaps, we have yeah, and I really like your reference to the flow. Um, I think going back to what you said, and very, very well said, we need problem solvers, but we need problem solvers that agree on what the problem is,
Mhm.
because they can solve the problem in different ways. Cancel ESG, the problem disappears for a while at least. There is something called nature which flows and says, okay, you cancel ESG, we still have limited resources. We still produce more greenhouse gases, but the process, they flow a different rate, right? It's like you know going back to the river model, right? They go fast, and maybe they go in a water fall, and then they go slow and slow and methodically when they come down to the plains. So we have I really like, and I think we can continue the discussion on how uh, sustainability flow is not only dependent on how we define the problem and how we solve it, but is depending also on the generations.
Absolutely.
So, Maria, first thing and the main thing, we want to invite you back. We'd like to continue the conversation. It was a great conversation, excellent points. I want to thank you for taking the time to visit with us today, and to make sure that everyone tunes in every week for a new episode of AKFI Actionable ESG Talk series. You'll gain new perspectives on how to mitigate risks and create value by integrating ESG and digital transformation. Until then, goodbye from Manuel and Maria.